A privilege for me to be back here yet again. I'm so happy to see so many of you. And there's been some change here. I noticed it's cleaned out some seats, a little bit fewer seats. And the big change is that Bill and Bing are sitting on that side of the room. And I'm very disoriented by the whole thing. I'm like, no, hold on. Anyway. So it is always a joy to be here. I love this place. It holds a special place in my heart. It is one of my spiritual homes, one of the places where I found a lot about myself and a lot about other people. And there has been a lot of change in my life, too, recently. We moved from Greenville. When I was here, I lived in Greer, and then I moved to Greenville, and now I've moved to Spartanburg, which might as well be on a different planet. It's completely different than Greenville. It's so laid back and so easy. And I spend 4 days a week in Charleston, which is anything but easy. Charleston, there's 2 cities in Charleston, the one you visit as a tourist and the one you live in. And the one you visit is wonderful, and the one that you live in, somewhat less wonderful. I feel like all I do is drive. But moving from Greer to Greenville, moving from Greenville to Spartanburg, it's funny. Once you get past where are we going to put all our stuff, and the little weird things that you have to deal with, like there's some weird things, like we went from a house that had all carpet to a house that had all hardwood floors. So everything slides all around the place. So we had to find a way to keep it from just walking away when we were doing stuff. Hey, where'd the chair go? Woo! But after you get past that, figure out the mechanics of it all, you settle in. I don't know about you. We settled in pretty quickly. And pretty quickly, it was home again. It just went right back. We were doing our stuff in the same way we've done it before, different rooms, different floors, but we were doing our stuff, and it was completely normal, really, really fast. And I think that for me helped me realize the difference between what a house was and what a home was. So we all know what the difference between a house and a home is, but there's something that you just sort of go, oh, okay, this is home now. Even though we've only been here 2 months, this feels like home. And it's not always. I know some of you moved into new places and you had trouble making it feel like home, right? It's not always super easy. And we have other homes too, right? Some of you have got a work home. You've got a place you've worked so long or a job you've done so well that you just feel like it's home, even though you don't work there anymore, right? I feel a strong attraction to the hospital I did my CPE in. I still feel an attraction. One of the things that makes me feel good about moving to Spartanburg is that's where I did my CPE. And there's this weird thing in my head going, now if I get sick, I get to go to that hospital, which doesn't make any sense. I understand that, but that's what I'm thinking. So there is a hominess to all of this, and there's a housiness to all of this, right? I remember when I was here, you were working on those cool front doors. And I remember all the work and it wasn't just you, but you were the one that came to the meetings and explained everything. And that was very house, right? We need new front doors. How are we going to do it? What's the best way to do it? Should we go with the glass ones, the metal ones? I remember all the questions. And that was very house. But the process you went through, that was home, right? That's what changed it from a house to a home. And that was really important. That process was really important. That's what the difference, I think, between the physical structure and the connections that we make between each other. We come here not because of the physical structure. I mean, we do. We come here because this is where the building is, right? But if we were to decide, this building, we're gonna buy a new building. We're gonna buy a new building way over there, and we're gonna go over there now. everybody would pick up, and you'd figure out why the stuff slides across the floor for a few months, but then pretty much you'd slide right back into it being home. I know you would. I know you fairly well. You would. You'd have the issues, but then you'd get over the issues. Because the home, it's you. You're the home. You're what makes it a home. And people will come and go, right? We talked about the elders that came and went. It's still a home. And they're still here, and you're still here. I remember there was some people here that have moved on just from the 2 years ago when I was here. And they've moved on in healthy and happy ways. And they're wonderful. So when we start to look at this, we are our stories. What makes ourself a home is our stories, right? You and me, we're just meat, right? But it's us together that changes something from the temporal to the spiritual. I'm going to give you an example of this. There's a minister who I know in southern Louisiana who runs a church, and they run a church not all faiths run churches the same way we do. So in this church, the church and the minister are sort of synonymous in a weird way, right? Here it's not quite like that. It's a little bit different. But it was his church. Like, it was literally his church. It was actually his, I think he owned the building. And it was a thriving church. It was a wonderful church. And it was wiped out by what was that hurricane that went through and took care of Katrina, right? It was wiped out by Katrina. And he said, we're going to rebuild it. And you know what? Every minister in every church said they were going to rebuild their house. He rebuilt the house. And I think it had a lot to do with the way they stated their budget. Because the way they stated their budget was really different than a lot of churches I've been in. I've been Roman Catholic and I've been Unitarian Universalist. What he did was he took all the money he spent every year, actually he did this quarterly, and he divided it by the number of baptisms that he did. So what he did was he said, we spent this much money to save this many souls. And he came up with a price per soul. It's not quite the way he phrased it, but that's essentially what he did, right? So when the church building went down, he made a very simple appeal. He said, we can't save any more souls because we don't have a building. We need a building to be able to save these souls. And the money flowed in to rebuild the building because saving these souls was really important to the people in that church. Now, I get that that's not really important to us. I understand that. But he changed the way he looked at budgets. And he changed the way he looked at money in a church. And he linked the budget to the mission. So what if we were going to do that, you and I? Right? What would that look like in a Unitarian Universalist church? I think it goes back to the stories. It goes back to the connections. It goes back to what would make it so easy for us to pick up from here, go set up church down over there, figure out why the chairs are sliding around, boom, and we're right back in it. It's because of all of us. It's our connections. It's the stories that we have together that link us together. It's the spiritual work that we've done together in the classes. We take our experiences out there, we take our experiences in here, and we come and we work on them together. And they become part of us. And we become linked to each other in ways we can't even remember. Who started Clemson, the child care thing? Who started that? It was Unitarian Universalists, right?
Bernice
Is anybody?
Holt.
Who was it?
Bernice.
It was Bernice Holt.
And others.
And who? And Dillman Sorrells. They're not here right now, but they're still here right now, aren't they? Right? they're here and they're in you, and you're here, and you're here because of them, and they're here because of you. It is a big story. That's one of our stories. So if we were going to translate the budget, it wouldn't be into souls saved, although, I mean, some of you may be working on saving your souls. That's your own thing, right? And however you want to phrase that. You may be working on it, but phrase it in a completely different way, right? I think it's our stories. So when you start hearing all this talk about budget, the accountant people, I love accountants. Technically I am an accountant, but don't. The accountant people will want to tell you that the roof is going to need to be replaced in 30 years, and that's what they're going to tell you, but that's not the exciting thing. The exciting thing is when you replace the roof, you'll be able to continue to create your own stories here. And you'll be able to continue to grow and change and be what you want to be, where you want. And where you want to be might not even be where you end up because of all this connection with everybody else. So when you talk about the budget here, translate that into your stories. Translate that into the stories that you live out here. And I will bet you that what you donate to this church, no matter how much, is pennies per story. Pennies. Because of the richness of the stories. Not because of the amount you give, but because of the richness of the stories. Especially if you've been here a long time, there may be some stories you don't even remember anymore. They're so deeply ingrained into you that you don't even think of them as being stories. So when you hear about the budget, it's going to be about roofs and salaries and all these things, and that's all great, but those are all means to an end. The end is the stories. So do like my friend, the minister in Louisiana, and translate your contribution to this place into stories. How much is my contribution changing my life, and how much is my contribution per story? And I will bet that some of you are paying pennies per story. So when they ask you for another couple pennies, it's because they love you and they know you have an awful lot of stories here, and that is why you come here. You're grateful that those windows don't leak, but that's not why you come here. Right? I'm happy that the windows don't leak. I'm happy that there's air conditioning here. I am. Or heat, whatever's on right now. Whatever. I'm happy for that. I love that, but that's not why I come here. I come here because of you. And you come here because of you. So translate what you give to the church into price per story. And tell me how many pennies that is. And you will find such joy in your contributions.